CPU. It is very important for the computer, and it is called central processing unit. So it is a component often used in computer from the smallest computer and to the largest computer. And the CPU can be great for Intel Core. For that, the i9 is the newest and relatively more quicker than i7 or i5 or the older version i3. So processors are relatively small compared to RAM. The CPU is basically the brain of the computer, just like the CPU will be. And the CPU clock rate, that will be the speed of the CPU, that is known as GHz. So it's a very important thing inside of a CPU. If the clock rate is higher, the computer will be relatively faster and will be much better at not making the computer overheat or damage its Intel Core. And the oldest core, which is appropriately named single core, and the holy grail of cores for gamer health, quad core. Well, the more core you have, the quicker your computer will run. No more core are faster only if a program can split its tasks between the cores. Not all programs are made to split tasks between cores. More on this later. Hacker, that is a setback to the newest core. It's the stronger the core, the more juice it needs. More about the two brands, that the Intel is founded a long time before, and it is a traditional company, but AMD is a relatively newer brand that gamer would prefer the AMD over Intel, mainly because AMD is known as the best CPU for gaming. And for less hardcore gamers, they would prefer Intel because it has a good reputation in the industry. So in U-cache is a hardware cache used by the central processing unit CPU of a computer to reduce the average cost, time, or energy that will be to access data from the main memory. So a cache is a smaller, faster memory closer to a processing core, which stores copies of data from frequently used main memory location.
Functions of the computer, and the CPU is linked directly onto it. The motherboard is the main reason why we are able to plug in USB to VGA and circuit ports, as seen here. Right here. You are working. In other words, it is the working place of your computer, where active programs and data are loaded so that anytime the processor requires them, it doesn't have to fetch them from the hard disk. I do not have a picture of a RAM, but the motherboard links up all components of the computer, then send it into the CPU, which is the central processing unit. The CPU, as explained before, the type of motherboard affects the overall speed of the computer. The better the motherboard, the faster the computer. Most people know the term as BIOS by another name, device drivers, or just drivers in general. BIOS is the essential link between the computer hardware and software in the system. All motherboards include a small block of read-only memory, meaning ROM, which is separate from the main system memory used for loading and running software. On laptops, the BIOS contains all the code required to control the keyboard, display screen, disk drives, CDs, serial communication, and a number of miscellaneous functions. Cache memory. Cache memory is a small block of high-speed RAM that enhances PC performance. This is a cache memory right here. Here. These are all small blocks of cache memories that you can find on your motherboard. Expansion bus. An expansion bus is an input or output pathway from the CPU to devices, and it is typically made up of a series of slots on the motherboard. These are the expansion bus. So how it works is that these slots are where you put your RAMs into it. When you slot it in, and then when you turn your computer back on, it starts it all over and adds the function to it.
The RAM is to 16 gigabytes. That the higher the gigabytes it is, and the newer the version is, the faster the speed and lower possibility to overload your computer. So there are different types of appearance using in different computers of RAM. That this is the normal one you can see in the desktop computer, just like this, and this is called dual inline memory module, that is DIMM, that is used in desktop. And another one that will be SODIMM, small outline DIMM, that is used in laptop. That DIMM is double of the length of the SODIMM. So you can see this will be the smaller one for the laptop, and this will be the larger one for the desktop. Now we will talk about the different generation of the RAM. That will be DDR, will explain as. There's 2002, 2004, 2007, and 2014. That will be DDR, DDR2, DDR3, and DDR4. So we can see as below that will be the speed, the density about the different RAM, the different generation of RAM. That the higher, the newer the generation is, the density of it will be more compact. That the less storage, even the less amount of gigabytes, the data can be stored more compact, making more data can be stored in the limited amount. And in the energy part, the newer the DDR is, the less energy will be used. Also, in the newer RAM, the transferring speed from finding the data to finding the data and getting the data, it will be faster for using the new DDR. And now we'll talk about the characteristics of hard disk drive. That if the little magnet touches the disk directly, that will be this part. It will be this drive will be damaged and it cannot endure shaking or little damage even. And yes, and the floating speed will changing the data, the speed of finding the data, but also the higher the speed, it will make more heat and use more electricity. And another thing, that will be SSD. SSD is a new technology that's easy to be damaged and smaller with no disk at all. And there is any flash in it. The SSD is small in size, but much more expensive. And the SSD also split into 3 types: single level cell, multi-level cell, and triple level cell. The single level cell is the best in processing the data, but it's much more expensive. So the triple level cell is the worst, be cheaper. So let me give an example. Even though there is only 60 megabytes per second for higher end HDD hard disk drive, but thinking about using a 240 gigabytes SSD can already reach 500 megabytes per second, and it's at least 5 times faster when handling 4K files. And most of the hard disk drive are not as fast as 1 megabytes per second. So somewhere we know that even the triple level cell will be faster than HDD for processing the data. And the comparison of the HDD and SSD. So the fee is much more expensive for SSD, so that people will always just buy 128 gigabytes or 256 gigabytes. And the speed and the power need to be used is less, and the protection of data is better with no sound at all for SSD, and less opportunity to break down. However, the use can be used for the write and read head in the HDD that's here for, and is long enough if you not endure damage or shaking. But in SSD, they have a limit for the time for the electricity gate. If it is used up, the gate is used up, we cannot recover the data. So, but in HDD, we may have a possibility to recover the data, but in SSD, there is no possibility at all. Here, we can see that this is a liquid cooling system and not a traditional fan system for normal PC. This will be found in a gaming PC because the heat for playing games on a computer is far more than just surfing on the web or just editing video, and this will be a faster way for the cooling the computer and preventing the computer for being too hot and the computer may be broken down. And also in a gaming PC, in the battery life, if this is a laptop, the battery life will be longer than normal laptop. It will be about 8 to 10 hours because in gaming there are more longer games, and the battery life will be deciding can the player finish the game not using the whole battery life. And there will be higher end graphic cards that will not appear in the normal PC. These graphic cards will make the game more realistic, and the graphics will be better. And there will be a faster processor for the gamer to not suffering from. I will talk about the evolution for the CPU. That in the later days, CPU may not appear anymore, and the computer will be just as small as like this, a chip size for a computer. All the components will be put into this chip, just like this. There will be the CPU, the display card, other things, the SSD,